Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sandra. Today I am so excited to be doing the mid-year Book Freakout Tag, which is a tag that was started by Earl Grey Books a few years ago and another booktuber. So I'll be sure to tag them in the description box below. It has been a long time since I did a book tag video, or really just a tag video in general, probably going on 3 years. And I don't know why I don't do them more often because they're always so much fun. Now, I was going back through my older videos to look at some of the other tag videos that I'd done, and it's always so cringy, but also kind of fun looking back to see how awkward you are when you first begin something like a booktube channel. But I mean, I'm still awkward, but we're just having fun with it, right? And I'm still having fun reading books and talking about them, so we're just gonna go with it. I am going to keep this video super chill today. So I have my drink of choice. I have hot tea. Get your water, get your hot tea, your coffee. I'm not drinking coffee anymore. This is like day 10 without coffee because I have really bad anxiety and I can't sleep, and cutting coffee from my diet has really helped me with that. If anyone needs little pointers, that might be something you could try. Anywho, can you believe half of the year is over already? I feel like 2024 just began, yet here I am about to celebrate another birthday very, very soon. It has gone by very fast. I started off this year, the Goodreads reading challenge. I took pointers from Cadman Reads over on Instagram, and I set my reading goal as 1 book for the year just to keep it really low pressure. Reading is supposed to be fun. Whatever you read is a win. Putting down 1 as my goal was a way of accomplishing that and keeping it really stress-free. And I will say, so far for 2024, I have read 40 books, which is the most that I have ever read in this kind of time span. So I think there's something to say about keeping it really flexible and low pressure. That kind of gives you space to breathe and explore a little. And so it appears that is what I've done. I'll be interested to see how the rest of the year goes, but like I said, I'm keeping it stress-free, low pressure, just for fun. So grab your drink, settle in, let's get to it. I'm going to be using my phone to reference this list of 13 items, so I apologize. The first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far? This is a very recent read for me. I'm gonna go with Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This was not surprising that I was gonna like it. Everything that I'd heard about it was an amazing book, so I still need to read Golden Sun, which I will be doing that in the next couple weeks. But this book is so good. It follows a character named Darrow who is 16 at the time, and there's so many twists and turns in this book. It's this really great blend of science fiction and fantasy, and the book is divided into different parts that have just this major reveal at the end of it, and it's just so interesting because Darrow is so young and he has kind of this Spartacus-like arc through the books. I am dying to know where his story takes him because I feel like my mind has already been blown with so much of the development in this book. He's just such an intriguing person. So this is an amazing book. Can't believe it's taking me this long to read it. I did a full non-spoiler and spoilery discussion previously, so I'll be sure to link that video if you're curious to see it. But Red Rising, best book I've read so far this year. The second item is best sequel you've read so far in 2024. That is going to be Lady of Light and Shadows by C.L. Wilson. The funny thing is, these books came out a long time ago. C.L. Wilson is essentially the type 0, author 0 really for this whole romantasy type of genre. If you read this Terran Soul series, there's so much influence from this book and so many other fantasy series out there, but what sets this book apart is C.L. Wilson's writing is very adult. It is high fantasy, epic fantasy. The writing is just luxurious. The whole cast of characters, there are scores of characters in this book, and the protagonist is someone who is discovering things about her past and her abilities, and there is a very Rhysand type of love interest in this. It's just, you read this book and your mind automatically goes to like Throne of Glass and ACOTAR because there seems to be so much influence from those series, and this is kind of like the OG romantasy book, which I talked about book 1 in depth on this channel before, so I will share that video with you too. But this is the best sequel I have read this year. The funny thing is, the first two books kind of got the Eye of the World, Wheel of Time treatment. Lady of Light and Shadows was originally supposed to be the second half of the first book, which is Lord of the Fading Lands. So it was supposed to be one big 1,000-page just clunker kind of book. And like the Eye of the World, at one point, it was split into two books to be more digestible. So the first book is actually kind of, you don't really see what's so special about the plot, the contained plot of that book, but this is the rest of it. The things that happen in this book, there are deaths, there are dark things happening, there are so many twists that I wish they would have kept it one book, because I feel like people will pick up that first book and just be like, it was okay, when this is when it really gets started. I haven't read the rest of this series. I'll speak more to that later this video, but Lady of Light and Shadows was an amazing book. The next item is new release you haven't read yet but want to. That's easy for me to answer, so it's going to be The Book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence. I think this sequel book right here came out in April, I want to say. The first book, The Book That Wouldn't Burn, came out last year. I've also reviewed that book on this channel, so I'll share that as well. It is a really mind-bendy kind of book. It follows two characters, Ivar and Lyvira. Lyvira is one of my favorite protagonists, and she's pretty young in the book series. She's just really, she has a lot of initiative. She's scheming. She's very resourceful. The whole setting of this book taking place in this infinite library, it's just really cool. And I really love the themes that are explored in this book. It talks about just kind of the cyclical destruction and reconstruction of the world over and over, humanity's inclinations, human responsibility and knowledge and what we do with that knowledge and that kind of thing. So I am definitely interested in finishing this up this year as well. Next item is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Last summer, Tia Guanzon debuted her romantasy kind of writing career with The Hurricane Wars. The sequel, A Monsoon Rising, comes out much later this year, and I cannot wait to pick that book up. It kind of has like Kylo Ren fanfic type of vibes, but it's set in this super rich Filipino-inspired culture, just like the clothing they talk about, the foods, the world building, the lore, and the names that are in the book. It's a very like high fantasy, romantasy kind of book. And we were left on a cliffhanger in the first book, which I'm really interested to see where we pick up. A Monsoon Rising is going to be like a arranged marriage kind of trope. It's definitely an enemies to lovers romance, very slow burn, but I love the writing. I am anticipating this one so much. The next item is my biggest disappointment. That is easy as well. I had really high hopes. Maybe that was the problem with this book. But Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. I read Magnolia Parks last year, maybe, or maybe the year before, I can't remember. But I really liked Magnolia Parks. It was one of those train wreck drama type of books, but I was completely engrossed in it. I was really rooting for the main characters, and then I had my heart broken kind of at the end, and just like you feel very strongly about the characters and their decisions, and they're not the greatest people, but it's just super entertaining to read. So I had high hopes for this book, and it ended up being a hate read for me. I was so disappointed and couldn't wait to finish the book, and the ending ended up being as ridiculous that I thought it was going to be, and every character was just grating. We followed completely different characters in this book. I mean, obviously the name says Daisy Hates, not Magnolia Parks. I don't know. I'm going to continue at some point because the next book picks back up with Magnolia, but I've been kind of turned off from this whole thing with this book. It's just, it was such a whiny snore fest to me. So, yay. Next item is biggest surprise. I will say biggest surprise for me was The Idea of You by Robin Lee. This one, I kept getting targeted with Prime Video ads for The Idea of You adaptation, which stars Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galitzine. And so I hurried up, got the book, and read it before watching the movie. I didn't know what I expected from this book. It kept getting pitched as a romance. So if it's a romance, you expect like a happily ever after, fluffy feelings. When I finished this book, I burst into tears. I was so upset with the ending. So that was a surprise in a way. It's also rated like a 3.8 or something like that on Goodreads, which for a romance quotation marks kind of book is not that high, so I was pretty worried going into it, but I love this book so much. It's really a women's fiction, a literary fiction that follows an age gap kind of romance. The characters are just so compelling, and it's really relatable too. And I just love this book so much. It became one of my favorite books this year. I will be looking out for anything else that Robin Lee writes for sure. The next item is oh, favorite new author. I don't have this book like a physical copy because I borrowed it from the library, but I'm gonna go with Dolly Alderton. I borrowed Ghosts from the library and I fell in love with her writing. She was a Sunday Times columnist and her voice is just real. There's something about it that just completely engrosses me. She had me laughing, she had me cringing for some of the situations. And I feel like just how she depicts people like millennials and in this modern dating world, it was so realistic. How she depicted friendships and how they change over the years when people go through different life stages. It was just a really good book, and I'll be picking up good material next, which should be interesting because it follows a male main character who's recently gone through a breakup and is just kind of lost and flailing in life. And then I do want to pick up Everything I Learned About Love, which is a memoir, which I'm curious to read because I'm sure that she saw all kinds of things as a columnist. Dolly Alderton, really love her voice, really love her sense of humor, and really love how she depicts just modern living. Newest fictional crush is going to be so easy. I'm going to go back to The Idea of You and Hayes Campbell. Hayes Campbell was perfect. There was literally nothing wrong with him. He had so much emotional intelligence. He was mature. He knew what he wanted. He had it figured out. He was creative. He was very young at heart. I mean, he was younger, but he was young at heart. You know what I mean? And he was just so cute. And even in the movie, he just had this like K-drama kind of adorable cuteness to him. So Hayes Campbell is like a forever book crush, I'm gonna say. So he just does it for me. There's that. Newest favorite character, I'm gonna go back to Darrow because he is such an interesting head case study. He kind of goes through this journey in the book, starting out as this very simple guy, 16 years old. He's a hell diver, mining for helium-3. He's married to his childhood sweetheart. He just thinks if you work hard, you'll get what you need in life, and that's all there is to it. And he learns very quickly that that is not the way life works, and his world kind of blows up. So this book right here, he's so interesting. A lot of the time, he is filled with rage, and he's so focused on suppressing that rage to do other things without giving away any spoilers, that at some point he's gonna have to explode. And so I'm here to see it. He's so fascinating. I love a good Spartacus type of story in like this whole space, like medieval fantasy type of combination that was going on. So Darrow for sure. Books that made me cry. The most recent 3 books were Red Rising, because there's some horrible things that happen in there that are kind of the catalyst for him growing. And then The Idea of You made me cry. Like I said, I burst into tears at the very end of that book. And there were also some really just tender, sad moments between the mom and her daughter that made me cry. And then a debut that came out by Natalie Sue called I Hope This Finds You Well, which I didn't expect to cry in this book, but there was a scene at the end between the main character, Jolene, and one of the side characters that I did not expect to have the emotional impact that it did, and it just hit me, and I was sitting here sobbing as I read the scene. So it was just so good. It's about a girl that really just struggles with everything, like independence, her work, fulfillment, and purpose. And it's just, if you've gone through a quarter life crisis, you know all of the challenges around that and some of the things that you can get anxious and depressed about. And this book just really hit, but it was still really funny too. I didn't expect it to have the emotional depth, so those 3 books anyway, those made me cry. The next item is a book that made me happy, which, I mean, this is a no-brainer. Emily Henry came out with Funny Story this year, and this might be her best book yet. I loved Book Lovers. I loved Beach Read. I also loved Happy Place, but Happy Place was more of a women's fiction that came out last year. But Funny Story just had all the good vibes. I was laughing, I was having fun. I couldn't wait to turn the page and see what other shenanigans the characters were going to get into. And the male main character, Miles, was so dreamy. It was just like the perfect book. It had like the perfect amount of everything, just fun and romance, the deeper thoughts about life in general, and the relationships in this. I just loved it so much. It made me happy, and the ending was happy, and it's just a happy book. So Funny Story for sure. Most beautiful book I bought this year is this special edition for The Cruel Dark by B. Northwick, and look how beautiful this is. B. Northwick is an indie author. She debuted with The Cruel Dark last October, I believe. And then she published a companion novella called Lover, which is a male POV of that book. But this book is so beautiful. I had to snatch up one of these limited editions. The cover art is gorgeous, gold foil. It's so pretty. And here's the back. If you haven't read this book and you're looking for like a gothic romance that's very twisty, I think you would like this one. So I recommend it. It's also spicy because someone's going to be wondering. There is spice in this. I honestly could not anticipate the ending, and I love being surprised like that. Most beautiful book right here. And then finally, the 13th item, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I'm going to be the annoying person and say there's no book that I need to read by the end of the year, because the whole point of my reading goal of 1 was to not put rigid goals and pressure on myself. So we're going to keep it fun. And I'm just going to say there's no book that I need to read. If I read something, I read something. If I don't, I don't. There's always next year. The only books I will say that I anticipate reading is going to be the rest of the Terran Soul series. So like the rest of this series by C.L. Wilson, because I have 3 books left to read, which is King of Sword and Sky, Queen of Song and Souls, and Crown of Crystal Flame. I'm going to read those this summer because I do plan to host a little discussion video with my friend Jess from Jim Was Cancelled, a Buffy podcast, here on my channel later this summer. So we will be talking about the Terran Soul series. So I do plan on finishing those books. And of course, I will be finishing Red Rising because I'm obsessed. So yeah, lots of good books coming, and I'm not even going to stress about whether I read them or not because life happens and I have a lot of shit to do. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed watching me do the mid-year book freakout tag and hearing some of my thoughts on everything that I've read and reflecting on some of the books that I have All right, so hopefully you enjoyed watching me do the mid-year book freakout tag and reflecting on some of the books that I've read this year and what else I am anticipating. We won't say planning on reading, but anticipating for the rest of the year. It's been, like I said, a solid year, 40 books. Maybe I'll read like 5 for the rest of the year. Who knows? I'm really happy. There's no freak out going on my end. We're just keeping it fun. Let me know in the comments what some of the books you've read, good and bad, have been like this year, because I'm always curious to hear good stories and bad stories. And if you read any of these books, what you thought. If you made it through to the end of this video, let's stay on theme, so drop me like an hourglass emoji. It means so much for you to be here watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you like this video and want to see more from me. You can find me at Sandra's Library on Bookstagram. And if you're a romantasy reader or a general popular media fan, I co-host the Story Darlings podcast with my high school best friend Tara, so I'll be sure to link the podcast to that and our Amazon book club below so you can join in the fun there. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I will see you soon. Bye.